Hi, everyone. We're here for another episode of the Edwin and Paul podcast. Today we have Orthorio here. You're just Orthorio, right?
No,
We can pick a
whatever.
handle.
Yeah.
But it's
Brazilian
actually
guy.
your handle. It's not your actual.
That's fine.
Huh?
No, that was literally a random word I got off a LastPass to make this email address just
Oh.
now.
Oh.
But sure, let's go with that.
Can you introduce yourself to everyone?
I don't know how. I'm not sure I want to.
Brazilian guy. We'll just
Yeah,
go with
Brazilian guy
Brazilian
is
guy.
fine.
Okay, Magic Brazilian guy. We have
Sure.
Magic Brazilian guy over here, and he's going to tell us about what's going on in Brazil and how super fascisty everything is. I'm just kidding. I mean, fashionable.
Fashy is a term, right? It's like a certain internet term. Fact to say, I don't know.
Fashy.
Maybe it's probably predates. People like to shrink, like bikey instead of biker.
Maybe.
In Australia, they say
We'll
that.
open the stage for you and let you kind of, take us through a little bit of the history of Brazil and, what's been going on and how it actually all sort of fits in, like why it makes sense that what's happening is happening.
Sure. All right. So the thing we were talking about just now, before we started, is the military dictatorship. We had a coup in '64. That was so we had a socialist president elected. The military stepped in, took power, and they held on to power until 1985. We had an indirectly elected president, then the first direct elections in '89.
Wait, what do you mean by direct?
Elected by Congress.
Oh, okay.
So
it's a little like, what we had originally, right?
Yeah, the electoral college. I think the 25th Amendment is what got rid of that. Like the 40s.
But it was really supposed to be a transitional thing, if I recall.
It always is.
So, and then, yeah. We had democracy before that, of course, but we're, especially the latest version, the latest iteration of Brazilian democracy is very young, right? So that's a major point, right? And corruption has been a huge issue in Brazil ever since, and I mean probably before too, but of course we didn't have a free press. It's not like that was the biggest worry, let's say. But once we had democracy, once we had direct elections, then like the real shit show started with corruption. And all right, so what we've had for a long time, the dictatorship was never totalitarian. It was never, it was pretty repressive, but it certainly wasn't fascist by any means.
No awesome uniforms.
I don't recall any. I can't even think of the uniforms. But anyway, I wasn't even alive at the time, I guess. Yeah.
Why else have fascism? To be
yeah, you're not gonna have fashionable boots. Like, why would you have fascism?
Aesthetics is the whole point, right? And we've had this the big left party. Which is the Workers' Party. PT is their acronym, and they were, for a long time, they were a big deal in the resistance to the dictator, and some of the big activists, and they were basically socialists. Like their history.
Were they market socialists, or were they like
No, social, like old school.
Like
Um,
the communism, we just have to deal with this like gross market stuff in the meantime. Communism.
yeah, I mean, and of course, in the context of the dictatorship, they're the dissidents, right? So, but always like very close to Cuba.
So you're saying, when you say in the context of the dictatorship, they were always the dissidents. Politically, they're on the opposite, and they're also the populist resistance. So you're because socialist. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, they were a big deal in liberalization in the end of the dictatorship. They were a major force, let's say.
Gotcha.
The
counter narrative that was then,
yeah. I mean, my history isn't so sharp about that time period, but they were a big deal. But after came democracy, we were stuck with hyperinflation for a lot of years, and basically that got solved by
hyperinflation happened when?
In the 90s.
So this is after the military.
More like 80s. Yeah. Towards the end.
The military dictatorship, they had irresponsible fiscal policies.
They were not great. Yeah, and neither were the first presidents.
I thought the socialists were supposed to be the ones who.
They were not particularly good. They were into what the media called the pharaonic projects. So like Brasilia, our capital, they just built that in the marsh because it's in the geographic center of Brazil. You draw a line.
Everybody said it was daft to build a castle in a swamp, but I built it anyway, just to show them. And it sank into the swamp.
Basically, they built a highway across the Amazon, a nuclear power plant that never really worked. That was just like, anyway. So they had these huge investment projects that bankrupted the country. They did get somewhere with some development, economics, import substitution, industrialization. If you guys know about that stuff, that's really like Latin American political science and 20th century history. Anyway, but Brazil entered a huge stagnation, hyperinflation, and basically this neoliberal guy who was our president for most of the 90s solved it through kind of a sleight of hand, I guess.
Some macroeconomic theory swooped out of nowhere and was applied to
Yeah, honestly, it was something. It was like, okay, this is the new one. This is gonna work this time, guys, and it kind of did. It's not altogether unlike that.
Maybe all they needed was to just believe.
There's a not bad episode of This American Life about that, or a segment anyway. I forget what it's called, but we can link later, I guess. Anyway, so, but growth in the 90s was not great. There was a neoliberal wave, privatizations, and then the leader of the Workers' Party, Lula, who you may have heard of, was elected president in 2002, 2001 to take office in 2002. And a lot of people were concerned. He's because he was, a socialist of the Castro strain, right?
You mean he was a dirty commie?
Basically. So a lot of people were like, oh, the revolution's coming to Brazil. This guy's going to be elected president. What the hell's going to happen? But the thing that got him elected,
communism.
Yeah. The thing that got him elected was moderating himself. He got a suit, trimmed his beard, and I mean that literally.
Stop tripping every Friday.
and he moderated his proposals. He went like moderate, center left candidate. He won. And in that decade, in the 2000s, Brazil grew, I think the GDP tripled, more or less. That's huge.
Wait, what?
Whoa.
Yeah, it was huge.
That's
huge. What?
That's
yeah. Here, let me just make sure I have that right. But
isn't the internet great? What is this? Was there like a rise in the cocaine trade that took over the economy? And no.
Well, it definitely makes for compelling podcasting, looking shit up. Anyway, it was huge. Let me see. Okay, 1960 to 2018. Right, so we have from 2002 to about 2012.
Yeah.
It went from 500 billion US to 2.5 trillion. So that's 5 times.
What?
All right.
What happened?
You're wrong.
What happened? That is so much. Okay.
The Chinese commodities boom was one thing.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
You
just like
oil, do you?
What?
Brazil doesn't have not significant amounts of oil, do
Well, yeah,
we do.
Oh, you do?
They have lots.
Yeah.
Last day.
Yeah, not little. We have a big state-owned oil company, which is.
Well, that's probably like a huge part of that.
Not really. I think.
Sounds like it would have helped, actually.
Maybe. How, like,
or it was cocaine.
No. We're talking steel, soy, cotton.
Yeah, but
it's,
I mean, I don't know. This is probably
guys
worth writing a paper about. That's pretty interesting. Thinking about what the drivers of the Brazilian boom.
Yeah.
Were.
I mean, certainly there's also like, I mean, okay, I haven't studied this from an economic perspective, but what I know is like, the 90s, a lot of 90s policies were of like very, very harsh protectionism. And then the mid to late 90s saw privatizations and stuff like, for instance, finally opening up the domestic market for computer imports. That was a big deal. We couldn't have computer imports because the government had this thing where they wanted Brazil to make their own computer technology. So we got a bunch of that stuff all at once.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's reasonable. I agree. For instance, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Privatizations too. I remember it was for you to get a phone line in the early 90s. There was like a 2-month waiting period, and you had to pay a couple $1,000s to get it.
Okay, in Brazil, yeah. I
guess that's not even. There's no way this should be.
Yeah. Put in a T1 line for about. It was like he paid some insane amount. I think he mentioned it on a podcast, like thousands of dollars per month, because it's for like a.
But this is one regular phone line.
Right. Well, I mean, okay,
right.
Yeah. So I'm just, the two aren't linked in any particular way.
Yeah, but I get it. Like the actual installation.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a so it was a state-run company. It was
No, it has more. It's
inefficient as shit, and so privatization did that for us, right? And today it's like phone line is free with your internet connection, like everywhere else, and so. Yeah, there were a lot of like internal structural things that just sort of aligned at the same time as the commodities boom in the 2000s, and Brazil just took off, right? And Lula, he reaped the benefits of that. Like he's the guy who pulled 30 million people out of poverty because he was president while that stuff happened. I'm not going to say he did nothing good. His policies were not terrible, but
quintuple the GDP on his own.
Not let's say not single-handedly. And then that was carried a little further by quantitative easing. So thank you guys, because the Fed did that to alleviate the financial crisis and the recession, but then a lot of that money,
20 something or
what?
Oil prices hit like 150 at some point in 2011.
Yeah.
So for a country like Brazil, that must have just been smooth sailing.
It was fine.
It depends on how well you are able to dice that up, hold it off for a rainy day, that sort of thing. Like I think Norway has managed that really, really well, but certain other South American countries, not that Norway is in South America, but other compared to Brazil is the other. But just to clarify the use of other, but because I don't know the situation with Brazil and I'm curious, but I know it sometimes doesn't get used up in the most efficient manner, and it just ends up like someone who takes over the next time around, and they're like,
I mean, it's part of the disaster in Venezuela for sure.
Yeah.
That's probably what I was thinking of. There you
go. We didn't have that quite, but we did well. We did well during the years. What?
You guys have a sovereign wealth fund, though, right?
That's probably a doing well sort of thing, right?
I mean, typically, even like most countries with large oil companies, like state-run oil companies, they have a sovereign wealth fund, and the profits get invested in that. And then it's like a regular fund, so they'll buy stock and a range of companies all around the world, so that their entire economy is not the gains from oil.
I'd have to look into that. Maybe I don't know it by that name.
I can be the Jamie or whoever looks it up for everyone. Yeah, that'll be my all right. Sovereign.
I'm not sure. But I mean, I know it wasn't mainly oil that buoyed Brazil, that caused this enormous
Sovereign
growth.
Fund of Brazil.
Yeah.
Established 2008.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Right.
Oh yeah, that big thing happened.
Yeah.
All right. So then Lula was people loved him. He's the most popular man in Brazil. He handpicked his successor, who was Dilma. You guys may have heard of her. So she was president after him. She was elected. That was 2010, I guess. Yeah. Re-elected in 2014 in a more difficult election, closer election between them, and impeached in 2015, I think.
Oh, for some sort of corruption related.
All right.
Or did he get sucked off in the office and then lie about it? but it was the word is. You don't understand the definition of words, because if you had like all the words in English that had 3 letters or less, and it was like if you had adequate correct definitions of those encoded in logic, that you've essentially solved the whole machine learning problem, general AI. That's all represented there.
Yep.
Go on.
All right. So now we backtrack a little bit because we need a little bit of context for the impeachment. So the thing, corruption, everybody knows it's a problem. In the mid 2000s, we had a few big scandals, right? For instance, 2005, we had the what's called the main salon. It was a scandal where people found out the Congress people were getting paid a monthly salary, basically, to vote with the majority.
Ooh, that's
so
undermine the entire democratic process.
Right.
Now that sounds like what happens everywhere.
Yeah, that is kind of how campaign contributions work.
But this is like, a literal like monthly payoff to shit. How many?
Like
how
the
many
memo of the
there?
check says like what you're gonna vote. That
could be, whatever. But it's pretty anyway. Whatever. Go on.
But that didn't stick. That did not stick back then. There were a couple other big things, but it just, the economy was soaring. I guess people didn't really want to hear it for whatever reason.
No shit. The economy quintupled in a decade. Yeah. I wouldn't want to hear it either. It's like, if you can do that, steal money. I don't care.
That's the stuff of Teflon, right? That's nothing sticks to the guy. Then Dilma got elected. Things were still going good. Quantitative easing, a lot of that money ended up here. But the markets were a little skittish. People were talking, there's a coming recession. They wanted to keep. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're just frozen. Oh, there we go. You made a funny face in the frozen brain, but anyway, all right. It's inevitable.
And so what happened was, well, the Workers' Party were big spenders always. That's their thing. They're all about social programs. They're all about. They had apparently, a pretty successful, certainly very well praised direct transfers program, just like, giving money to the poor, giving the poor a monthly stipend.
That sounds like communism.
That does sound like communism. I am not down.
It's a thing. Very, very popular policy.
People money was popular.
Surely no.
Don't say,
for people? Perhaps even?
Okay. I'll pay you, and then you're not going to say anything when I steal money. Okay.
People are happy. People are very, very happy. But then, so there's a looming crisis. Economists are saying this is not sustainable. This is going to crash.
That literally sounds like the failure mode of a helicopter when it has like a toroidal vortex, because it's falling too fast, and then it just it's like sucks itself down or whatever. You can't, even if you get the rotors going or whatever, like it'll.
That's a pretty good.
That's like
that's a pretty good illustration.
It's better analogy than a revolving fucking door. It doesn't. Although I guess that is. Yep. But where they come in where they get predictable.
Yep.
But yeah. Anyway, so I mean, they're paying the thing to people who go into power, who then give them money from the pot
and then everyone's getting rich, everyone's good, but then people are economists are warning of crisis. We've got to prepare. Elections coming up. The president Dilma at this point, she floats the economy with subsidies, with fuel subsidies, energy subsidies, to stave off the recession, the crash, for a little bit.
This is like late 2000s.
This is no. This is already 2013.
Oh,
This is their
So we
version.
had a long year of
so
growth.
so you didn't get hit by the global recession yet?
No, because China was fine. We were fine.
Oh, okay.
This
It
is
was a
probably
thing.
like a better version of bailouts in the United States,
You
right?
could just see the wave. Oh, that's fucked up. All right.
No, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like in the U.S., what we did is we like bought off all these toxic assets and then dumped interest rates to basically 0%.
Yep.
But what these guys, which basically means like rich people get to get more money,
Yeah.
but they're
That
actually
sounds good.
American. It's socialism the American way.
So you mean like the opposite of the... That's funny. We are kind of opposite land. We have a history of snake oil. That is a thing.
In America, we love rich people so much, and they're so rich for being rich that we give them more money.
There is this amazing, and I don't think he ever turned it into a bit, but there's a Louis radio Opie and Anthony thing where he talked about, I might have mentioned on the podcast before, but Donald Trump as like this object of worship by all these like, and this was like 2005 or something that he was doing this.
Uh-huh.
He said because he did, you know, comedy shows. You do comedy shows at hotels all the time, a lot of Trump hotels.
Yep.
And casinos as well. And so all these old people would come from these buses, and they'd have like varicose veins, and they'd have, you know, walkers, and they'd come and they'd pour their money into these machines because of this man, this idol that they're all just kind of. It's like a ritual. They pay to go there, and then they give him all money, and then it's just like a weird. And this again was way before Trump became president of America, and he was just a weird meme back then, I guess. Yep. a billionaire meme.
Oh, he was always so bizarre. Such a
it's a very New York thing to be this bizarre hybrid of like complete bullshit media. Just it's all and to be like, gotta get the metal thing to get built. Okay, we're gonna build a hotel, and which it's like so. It's but you know,
it's such a distillation of nouveau riche. Like,
oh God.
If you want to,
it is American to be. It's not really self-made, but it is a type of rich. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So okay. We were talking about this. So Doma got herself reelected by staving off and just barely, because the corruption scandals were kind of piling up already at that time. They managed to stave off the recession long enough for her to get elected. And then the crash came soon after, and it was bad, and it was worse because of those policies. The debt was worse, and we're paying interest through the nose, and just terrible. And yeah, this is here. Hold on, just a sec.
Sleigh bells, already in the Christmas mood.
All right. And an interesting thing, I don't know what really the consequences of this are, but we totally converted our foreign debt to bonds, to financial instruments. So
what?
we used to owe money, like the national debt, the sovereign debt was to like the IMF.
Right. But
is that?
No, go ahead. It seems like that's not a very good idea. But anyway, go on.
Well, yeah. Because we used to owe the IMF. and similar transnational institutions, development
This is the
development
ones
banks,
run by the cults
development
where they grease each other up and they take over the world.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then we I don't know when it happened, but we converted that all into bonds. So now what we owe the financial markets. The sovereign debt is all to financial markets. And Brazilian interest rates are high. This is an anti-inflation policy that's been sort of a Brazilian financial dogma since we recovered from hyperinflation. So the central bank keeps interest rates high. So like constantly, we are unusually high for our for the kind of country that we are. And so that's a pretty bad combination, because all our debts are we can't refinance because it's to the fucking financial market.
It's like it's in the cloud now.
Yeah, exactly. There's no entity that you can go and say like, help us out.
Where's my music? Where are my Beatles albums? They're out in the Grandpa. They're there. You paid for them. I know I paid for them. I want them right in front of me. Damn it.
Essentially.
Nassim Taleb would say, Grandpa's right.
And so in the early 2010s, there is this. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Yeah, it's a little choppy at sometimes, but yeah, we can hear you now.
Am I through? Is this okay? So in the early 2010s, there's this movement in the judiciary. A few judges and prosecutors are trained by American prosecutors, the FBI too, I think, as an anti-corruption task force. That's the so-called car wash task force project or operation. Yeah, I've been writing about it kind of nonstop.
Okay. Some of it sinks through.
And car wash, it's an anti-corruption task force. It uncovered a lot of things, and their MO is basically get a businessman involved in corruption. Fucking dog. Get them to turn, make a plea deal, get their testimony, get 3 more people, and so on. That's what they do, and it's been good. It's worked.
Are they more like the Untouchables, or are they more like those super meter maids who were able in New York? They wouldn't have to put their name on and they were like above because all the police would just put their badge on and double park every fucking where, and so then they were like, well, now we need police.
Not quite. I don't know that one.
Just on a spectrum, or are they okay? This is like a nationwide, and it's going after business corruption. You're saying, and then they'd be like RICO type, like if they can get a bunch of other people, or are they just getting people to turn on one dude each time, or? Yeah.
Well, we don't have RICO, but yeah, you get you get one turns, one points to a few more, and the dominoes fall. And
at least that's the idea. And does it work?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It's been working. But okay, so and they've been.
But democracy came in and crashed the party.
Well, not quite. Actually, kind of the opposite. It kind of crashed.
By electing the anti-corruption efforts. Are you saying?
Yeah. That's the thing.
So okay, this is all leading up to the current situation.
Yeah. And
I thought we were meandering aimlessly. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. We're building. So because we had 12, 13 uninterrupted years of 14 maybe of the Workers' Party government. And so, of course, who are the people that they are uncovering? Well, the people at the top are them, right? They're neck deep in this shit, and this is granting government contracts to big construction companies. That's a big deal. So graft in exchange for contracts, stuff like what else? Well, okay, I did hear one thing sort of through personal connections. So we have a big infrastructure bank that gives really low interest loans for infrastructure projects, and these were being given and then reinvested into government bonds, maybe by the companies or other things. Basically, just giving people money, big companies money. And I don't know. Oh yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, you guys have been able to continue.
Yeah. No, go on.
All right. And the oil company, the big national oil company, that was like sort of ground zero, like things, $5-10 million a month payoffs, just putting people in positions that just got these like multi-million. We're talking reais, which are today they're 4-1, but they were 2-1, 2.5-1 around that time.
Wait. What was given that kind of returns?
I'm sorry?
Housing or something? What's ROIs?
No, reais, that's our currency.
Oh.
That's our currency. So that's
I was also Edwin.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like 2 to the dollar, 3 to the dollar, depends on when. It's kind of volatile, so it
What's
depends
it right
on around 4, maybe 3.7.
Okay.
And
actually not that bad compared to the global market.
It's not the worst. It's
No.
but then okay, so all right, so they were uncovering these like just ridiculous amounts, like just so much money. There was and
it's too much. It's too much.
It's shit. It's so much money. And there was some bullshit that the oil company also bought a refinery in Pasadena, and it that thing Trump says about the worst deal of all time. It was like that.
We're hearing you, but it's froze on my end.
He's saying that, like, the surprise, that the government had like overpriced contracts with contractors who bribed the government.
And that was the big thing. But if you guys want to look up the Pasadena refinery purchase,
okay,
we really got fucking hosed on that one. Just like in terms of overpaying and then reneging on a contract which cost us maybe $2 billion. It was ridiculous. That was one of many things that were.
A man would kill for that kind of money.
Yeah.
It'd kill a whole bunch of people, actually.
And that's what leads up to the impeachment. And the impeachment was technically about the accounts, fudging the accounts.
The Brazilian state-run oil company Petrobras paid more than $1 billion to buy the Pasadena refinery, much more than the $42.5 million paid by AstraZeneca.
Yep.
This is $1,000 to $40.
Okay, so
Yeah.
That's like the
watching
toilet seat
that.
for sold for $10,000 or whatever,
Yeah.
That's insane.
which is
Ridiculous.
an urban legend apparently.
That's
And we still got hit with a fine later, if I'm not mistaken, by the U.S. government. No,
you overdrew, and so you get an overdraft charge.
And then so like, all right, so this leads up to the impeachment. And
You had to
technically the
agree out
impeachment
of court to pay $820 million.
There you go.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, go. I found it right as you started.
So yeah, that's it, man. And that's sort of the context for the impeachment. And the impeachment was like this. So since we're multi-party government, you have coalition governments. Then was vice president was of the let's call them the opportunist party, because they're the guys who make up the coalition of whoever is in power to make up the majority. So they're always in the majority.
There's one particular party you're saying that always ends up within the coalition.
We have the Workers' Party that became the center left. The PSDB, it's called, as the center right. That's
like orbital dynamics, where if you just have two, then it's all like boring and shit. But you just add anything else to the mix at all, then you need all these funky like Lagrange. It's spinning around the middle of an orbit. One of the bodies is really massive or something.
It's sort of like that, and you have this one party that just goes with whoever's in power. They are the ones that make up the come together with another big party to make up the majority.
Okay. This one, that's like their trick. This particular part, not trick, but like their shtick, whatever they do. Is they okay? So they're like that's like the. It's just gonna be too offensive. Sorry. The one, what do you do if you end up in prison? Okay, all right, never mind. Let's just carry on.
So the impeachment came with the backstabbing, basically, of the Workers' Party by this center opportunist party, because her VP was from this party. They impeach her and he becomes president.
Yeah. Okay. So then the backstabbing is highly incentivized. I know America used to have like runner-up would be the vice, right? Edwin, when did we stop? I don't know. It was like in the 1800s, I'll bet. But it definitely incentivizes the next party down. They probably hate because they were both neck and neck. So they oh shit!
Hillary was.
Oh my god! Everybody would be trying to kill Trump all day. That'd be all day. I mean, not everybody. I just mean the people right now who would be like, "Oh, Pence would take over." So they would suddenly be like, "Oh, my hero, Hillary would."
All right, guys, give me 1 second.
Go for it.
Oh, he's just gonna be back
momentarily.
So, Paul, what have you thought about South Park thus far?
Oh, this season's fantastic.
So good, right?
Yeah, like they just keep. I think it's like Louis, where like having kids gave you like a second win. Like biologically, there's something where it doses. And I know Trey, like he's got kids growing up, or at least at one kid, and I think it like. You go into like dad mode and you get like there's a little second wind, and otherwise you just kind of see old artists. They, I guess maybe Woody Allen was probably getting those injections, right, from the blood of the young or something. But so he would be an exception. And Paul Erdős, he was able to do math into his like 90s or something. But it's Anyway.
Yeah, dude. I don't know.
All right, sorry.
All right, good timing.
Yeah, I mean,
we hit an awkward pause.
Oh, great. I just drank 2 liters of water on camera, so who could have anticipated that I'd need the bathroom?
Oh yeah, it's not
anyway,
at all physically predictable consequence.
All right, so hold on, just.
Oh, false start.
All right, my dog is being inconvenient. All right, so where were we? Impeachment.
Yeah.
And of course, like the corruption was used as a reason, although technically it was the accounts, the creative accounting that was the given reason for the impeachment. Although, like, Congress was not shy about like how partisan their reasoning was. Like, as they, everyone got up, made a speech about why they were voting the way they were voting. It was a big event.
It was a pure power play.
It was, and I mean, it was not a pure power play just because the people were very much on board with it. Yeah. She was like in the single digits of popularity at that point. But
like
the
Merkel.
left, yeah.
No, I wish.
Okay, I don't get it, right? So Lula comes in, he dresses up. He's he's worker party, but he's still socialist, right? And then
but he governs as a centrist, center left guy.
But she's been the same thing pretty much.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, she brought the revolution. I mean.
No. The problem was that the recession finally hit, and it hit really hard.
So anti-communist right now. Is it like a culture war thing or something?
Yes, but okay, but it's. I think culture war is overstated, and it's overstated by the left. So the impeachment, it was a power play, and I think the left was right to call it that. The right doesn't really care about corruption. They're just, they want to get their guy in. It didn't help that the guy who ran against Dilma in 2014 was, indicted and found guilty of corruption. And he was stripped from Congress because he was a congressman, a senator, I think. But there's a big, like, there's a lot of people involved in corruption, right? So it's not just the Workers' Party. It's what they call the big center parties, the big center, which are these, the center right, center left, and this sort of opportunistic party, plus a lot of the high judiciary. What's called the public ministry, which is sort of the public prosecutors that investigate corruption. They're in on it. So there's a lot of like people who are beholden to the kleptocracy, let's say, and there are these warring factions within that. So Temer, the president, Dilma's vice president, backstabbed her, got on top, sort of threw the Workers' Party under the bus. That's true that they did, and that while sort of shielding themselves, this former center-right candidate from 2014, he was released. He was reinstated. This by the high courts. But people like are calling bullshit. Like even the right, even this sort of anti-corruption movement, which is mixed with the right and the center right, not necessarily the far right.
I guess it's like there's a certain amount of like pull up your pants, like kind of anti-corruption in that sense, but it's that. On a higher, okay. So
but I mean, like the right-wing candidates, even center right, were sort of trying to ride that wave, right? and it stuck for a while, but then like this guy got you know, the guy who was their presidential candidate got nailed, and they also lost you know, all confidence of the people who are concerned about corruption.
So you don't think communism is a large part of why he won, or why the new guy won?
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
anti-left, sort of left encroachment.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What? So that's the thing. The Workers' Party line has been for years now that they're being persecuted unfairly.
Okay.
Right. For corruption. Right. And the impeachment was one of the pieces of evidence, let's say, that they point to, because they say, oh, you know, just you put another guy in there, he's also really corrupt. What you really cared about was throwing out the left.
Right.
Right. And so there was this huge, like very strong identification of the Workers' Party, who represent the big left, let's say, in the country, and this position, right? That corruption, anti-corruption is a sham.
This is all now. This is like anti-disestablishmentarianism, right? We're like 5 layers in. That was originally a politically ironic. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Or sarcastic.
Yeah, no, I've heard it before. Yeah, it's sort of like that. But that's, I mean, my take is that that's their defense mechanism, right? They're calling, you know, persecution. They're calling, you know, right wing.
It's like the Russians.
It's not unlike that, you know. They're saying, oh, you know, and I see the standard lines in social media. Oh, you think the Workers' Party is the only problem in Brazil? You think everyone else isn't corrupt too? And this election, I remember earlier this year, people would ask, who you're going to vote for? Fuck if I know. There was no one. Right.
And this is like this is a playing field with many candidates, potential candidates, and there was just none of them appealed to
6 or 7, right?
This is that centrist paradox thing, right? Where like it's as you get from political left, political right, and it's like the question of, do you need a strong central leader? That suddenly, like it's weirdly the center. You end up with like here I can actually just find the graph.
You don't want a leader who's centrist to begin with, because they'll end up being
just strong is the
it's well, a point to converge on, at least, right?
Well, I don't think you want a centrist leader.
Oh, here we go. I inverted it. If democracy is the best political system for agree strongly, if that's the question, they might actually ask the other one later, but it's very high for right and left, and then it drops off for the center.
In the middle.
So
right. I remember that. Yeah. And at this time, Bolsonaro was kind of a joke candidate, not unlike what Trump was, you know, in the primaries.
Like Nigel Farage.
If he was, because he was the thing is, he was famous because he was.
He looks like a frog.
Well,
this is the decade for green frogs, man. They're all
I mean, because he was, you know, a rude guy, and he said like ridiculous things, and of course, like everyone talked about him because he's saying ridiculous things or really like inflammatory things.
And he's using estuary English, or maybe fancier. I don't. He talks. I guess he's sort of RP like. I don't know, but it's not. Yeah, I don't know. He has a British accent. Now all the British accents sound fancy outside of the UK. So you know.
Yeah.
Go on.
So he was a joke candidate. Like no one's like, who the fuck's gonna vote for him? This loon. And then he got stabbed in the belly.
I didn't know this.
No,
No,
this
yeah,
is
alright.
this is a big deal. Just a few months ago, 2 or 3 months ago,
Oh,
he got stabbed in the belly by a really fucking big knife. He was in surgery for hours. He nearly died. And
I thought you were talking about Nigel Farage. You're talking
I'm
about
sorry.
your guy.
I'm talking
That's
about
why
this
I didn't
guy.
remember. Okay, I do remember you telling me about the. Yeah, sorry, I was
Yeah.
just had his frog face in my. Yeah, so it's just taking up my whole field of view.
And there's so and that's the thing. Like there was at least one candidate I liked better. This like sort of center liberal, economically liberal guy. Let's balance the budget, this sort of thing. Serious businessman type. But like he was a total unknown. So like no one's gonna vote for him. And the Workers' Party guy, he had Lula behind him, and Lula was arrested, was put in prison earlier this year. I should mention. I don't know if you guys followed that at all.
Lula, Lula.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Lula, the former president.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The president throughout the 2000s, and like.
Oh, this is the dirty commie.
Yeah, the dirty commie.
All right.
He, I mean, like, there's no doubt in my mind the idea that he's not corrupt doesn't pass the laugh test. Like, he used to give sort of speeches to and talks to big companies, and he'd charge $200,000 for a talk. For an hour, 2 hours.
Hillary,
that sounds like Hillary Clinton.
Hillary was going to pay $250 for like 30 minutes. He needs to step his game up. What are you going to do? That extra hour and a half for $50,000?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But anyway, so nobody believes that he's clean, right? And of course, like everyone around him was being picked off by the corruption probes and but nothing stuck, and sort of like the speeches, the talks thing, you can't make it stick. There's too much plausible deniability. But the thing,
if you were in that position, where like, first of all, everything is corrupt anyway, so you're probably going to have to be corrupt to begin with.
Yeah,
just like accept $200,000.
Sounds like he's trying to justify slavery back in the no. Hey man, look, how could you even know what an abolitionist was in the 1500s? Yeah.
I just think if you were in that position, you might take it out.
Well,
even though
okay.
Obama got paid $400,000 for a speech on Wall Street after he got elected. After his term, he was like, "Oh, time to cash out."
That's the presidency.
But it's also the thing that, like, I guess it is, but there's also the thing that, like, all this shit was going on with the huge multi-million payoffs, and he was the most powerful man in the country. He was the effective leader of the party, even when he wasn't president anymore. He was sort of the man behind the power, and he's always like, "Oh my, like what? I had no idea about any of this." His line
was he like claiming he was senile? Oh, sorry.
No, his line was that he trusted the wrong people. Oh. That's his story, and
I think Reagan tried that too. Yeah.
And but the thing that they got him for was an apartment.
Just to own his own. He owned an apartment.
No, it was a beachfront apartment, a luxury apartment that. It was remodeled for about as much as it was worth.
The perks of socialism.
And so that's what?
The perks of socialism.
Yeah. No, well, exactly. And sort of like and he was nailed. What?
Nothing. It's probably not relevant to Brazil. Just that the money tends to, over time, with dirty commies, it tends to pool again for whatever.
Oh, no, well, it's relevant. Believe me. But yeah, and that apartment was a payoff from a smaller construction company who wanted to get in the contracts game, the government contracts game. There was a sort of testimony coming from plea deals, and the evidence was not super strong. I'll admit. There wasn't a smoking gun, but there was an accumulation of evidence that was pretty solid.
That seems like a trend. Just if I could, that's like becoming more common with the internet now, where you can you can string together enough evidence of a thing, where if you were able to find those same similarly reliable photographic and other and timing events, coincidences type of things in reality, if you just found it, you'd be like, oh, of course there's a thing going on here. But somehow the internet, we're kind of overwhelmed with so many of those like no direct, no smoking gun image or some direct, but it's like it's way too much of a pile of the other things. Yeah. It's I think that's an internet partly driven by the sort of the you can crowd sort of thing, and but
it makes sense. It makes sense, and it's sort of like that. And so like if you ask me, like, honestly, did they sort of push this through a little, with a little too much enthusiasm? Yeah, they did, right? They moved at the trial. They made sure he was in prison for this election.
So let me get this right. So why did this guy win, though? That's why. What I want to understand is why why this leader, as opposed to all the other people who could replace him. Is it the anti-communism rhetoric?
No, it's because he got stabbed. I think that's the best answer I can give.
Really?
He got stabbed.
That is,
yeah. Because you had this field. You had this field of candidates.
Black Swan shit right there.
It kind of was, man. You had this field of candidates that nobody was enthusiastic about. Nobody wanted any of those people.
Sounds familiar.
And then this guy gets stabbed, gets gutted like a fucking fish, and suddenly he's a symbol. And it helped that he couldn't really speak publicly for weeks after. This thing sort of coalesced around him. We're like,
that's insane. It's like if like an Irish king or something, some in like 980 gets struck by lightning, and then he's got that, that scar you get, right? That's like completely out of the blue event, and suddenly he's like leading the next revolution to the.
By the way,
no,
you guys remember when there was like an assassination scare at a Trump rally?
Yeah,
I don't remember that.
I think that there were
two of them. Yeah. There was one where this like weird guy tried to rush the stage.
Yep.
And then there was this other one where they just like freaked out. And they were like, oh, we thought somebody in the front row had something. But then they didn't they didn't go to anybody in the front row.
There's a Wikipedia article that attempted assassination of Donald Trump.
I'm pretty sure he set that. So the reason I bring that up.
The title is hilarious. What?
The reason I bring that up, I think Donald Trump faked an assassination attempt.
I wouldn't put it past him.
During election season, like so they said there was an assassination attempt, but they didn't detain anyone.
Wait, really? This is like they did find one. Wait,
No, this is so. There's one where there's like some random dude who rushed the stage. This is not the one I'm talking about.
Okay, this is not Michael Stephen Sanford was arrested at Donald Trump presidency.
No. This is different.
Pistol, blah, blah, blah.
I'll send you the video later. But
can I, real quick, just while we're paused and looking things up, I just wanted to say I did scroll down in that article for the centrist paradox, which is from 2018. So this is like they're like, oh shit! By the way, everyone, just this can happen. and they said support for the authoritarian alternatives, support for strong leader who ignores parliament or Congress. If that's the question they're asked, the center is like a big peak, and then it tapers off for right.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, into far right and far left. That's scary.
Yeah.
As someone who's very centrist in a lot of ways, I don't. Orange man.
I feel like centrists don't care about ideology. They want the shit they want, right? They want safety. They want a good economy, and fuck ideology.
Ideology, yeah, I think of it as pretty toxic.
Yeah,
like if the guy can deliver that, sure, why not, right?
I just think being a centrist is just like you should be heavily ideological on the campaign trail and then just govern as a centrist.
Yeah, that's
what is heavily ideological, like
play to your base.
Oh, okay. Well, what if your base is very divided? Like, how do you play to them without being a centrist? You can either tell one thing and tell the other thing, which there was a period like sort of pre-Lincoln, I think, where it was possible. I mean, but you didn't. That was when we still had electoral. Like, I think,
dude. I mean, what you do is you promise everyone that you're gonna give them everything.
Promise everyone you'll give them everything. Yeah.
No, so
I think you're far left. That's far left. That's
whatever. Just like
far right is we'll
no. Here's what a politician does.
Like
figure out what people want, and then you promise them you're gonna give them all of it. And the reason you're gonna give them all of it is because you have pure intentions, and everybody else is just evil.
And your platonic, perfect world.
Yep. Yeah, pure intentions, or and if you're Trump, you just have huge balls or whatever. And then, like, when you get there, you obviously don't give it, but it's whatever because, like, they didn't expect you to do it anyway.
Which is, I think, this is what happened to the. There we are.
No, but it's not just Trump. It's been happening for a long ass time.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I think though when people
everybody is participating in the illusion, right? Everybody knows politicians lie. And everybody's like, yeah, but they have to lie because they're politicians. So if you can get them to like you, you can say bullshit and they'll just be like, yeah, but this entire thing is bullshit.
It's true.
So you're really just singing to
them. Bullshit, a motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, or like, I don't know. I'm obviously incredibly cynical about politics.
Yeah, but politics has become this sort of meta thing where a lot of people who are following politics,
Trump,
like they're what?
I keep cutting you off. Right? It's the
Go ahead.
You're saying a lot of people who are following politics. What?
They seem to be judging. Not like the candidate as candidate, but the candidate's performance as politician. There's this. I mean, it's a thing with, I guess, that came with cable news and then blogs and shit, where you have this sort of constant attention and it people are just not listening to the proposal. They want to see, this guy's playing to the base. This guy's it's the horse race politics thing, but it seems like the analysis goes into the performance more than the substance.
So it's weird, right? People say like the problem is like there's a horse race. We're more divided than we used to be. There used to be being American used to mean something, and everybody sort of agreed on what that meant.
And I fully agree. Oh, sorry.
That's like one of the common things that people say. And I get all that, but it's like we used to all agree on a lot of bad shit too.
That's true.
Like,
excellent point.
So like, I don't know. We idealize the past, but I mean, Dude, you know, like when Chomsky came out in the 60s and actually openly protested the Vietnam War, that was a big deal back then. You didn't openly.
An academic certainly
going.
wasn't able to. He had authority. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Especially because of his. It's funny when you're you become an academic celebrity and you're considered, okay, if we had to find the smartest man in the world to talk to the aliens, Professor Einstein or that chap with the linguistic theory that the Piraha or whatever had not yet been found to disprove his assertions about the generative grammar. So it's the New Yorker's choice of that guy has a real. There's a level of celebrity and minds that you'd be able to reach. Yeah, I mean,
he's the man. Yeah. I like Chomsky. Read his stuff.
He's a consistent dude. That's a pretty baller thing to be for 60 plus. What is he, like 90 now? And he started this when he
88.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like the meta gets you in the end. You know, you there's a time when you're able to be authentic and legitimate, and you know.
So
the meta gets you.
So what do you think's gonna happen now? So he started like they start banning. What's this whole thing about banning fascist literature?
Oh, it's bullshit. It's bullshit.
Oh, or something.
What are we doing there?
What?
Tyler Cowen posted on his blog. He mentioned like what the hell is going on in Brazilian schools was like his link fest for Sunday, and was like this was like the fourth one was, and he it was a tweet to some guy saying that there were like armed police confiscating or some police were going into school.
Yeah, no, I know what it is.
Classes.
I know what it is. We have some pretty restrictive laws about campaigning.
So why? But right, I heard this mentioned, but that sounded like just an excuse. But okay, so this is like campaign propaganda material then because of the previous.
Sort of, like that's the thing. I don't agree with what the authorities did. They were in the wrong, but this was. But there, it wasn't like just randomly. Let's go and take anti-fascist materials from people. It's like, okay, a lot of universities were having anti-fascist sort of demonstrations or like giving out flyers, and they were saying, you know, no, this is a lecture material. This is a public institution, and you can't do this, right? Some banners and stuff.
Okay.
They were being overzealous. They were overstepping their authority.
I guess since dictatorship has only been like 30 years.
It hasn't been long at all. But
you just have this little bit to celebrate. So some of it kind of edges up with the present. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's that party.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, there's that stuff going on. But it's really overblown. Like my position basically is that this is way overblown. Well, okay, so Bolsonaro he's not a nice guy, right? He's like that. He is a homophobe. Yeah, he's a homophobe. Like he's transphobic, sure.
Communism has a history of that as well. So yeah.
I mean, this is like
to be
like if you ask me, like what is in his heart? It's a pretty twisted, shriveled old heart, I think. Right.
Rich heart, right?
Like, yeah.
Maybe.
Like, I don't think he's a good guy. I don't. I think like he likes the dictatorship. He's you know.
Now we have a lot in common with the.
Yeah.
Although
Duterte, Trump, Putin,
these aren't good guys. Yeah, no.
Although, as I've been saying, like Lula is a huge supporter of Castro, like was and supporter like supporter materially the there's a lot of give and take, even in terms of money. That was one of the things that the Workers' Party got. It's one of the things that they did was to have these exchanges, to find ways to, for example, send money to Cuba, to the Cuban regime. So in general, like, that's Brazilian politics. Like, you get the guy who likes Cuba, you get the guy who likes the dictatorship, and it is what it is.
Do they have Nazballs?
No, I don't think we have anything that sophisticated. Let's say. Brazilians are pretty dumb guys. That's all.
Hey, Americans can be dumb too.
It's true. It's true.
Like Brazil needs a libertarian movement.
Well,
I mean,
the thing is,
another group of delusional people. You're super helpful.
We have ANCAPs. We have a small but dedicated group of ANCAPs here in Brazil. But my gloss is this. He sort of reinvented himself as a centrist, a center-right guy, especially since the stabbing. And that's what he's been signaling very hard for, ever since, for the past few months, right? So it's all like, let's come together, let's respect the Constitution, respect democracy.
Oh, you know what's fucked up?
What?
So we're at the end of a credit cycle. So we're probably I'd say by 2020, definitely certainly 2019 we'll see some pullback, but certainly by 2020 we should see a recession in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. I heard about
it. A lot of the things that are driving commodity prices should reverse themselves with that recession in the U.S.
Yeah, that's gonna suck.
So, by 2022 or so, the economy in Brazil could be doing really well, and that motherfucker will claim credit for everything.
Yeah.
And that will allow fucking, right-wing assholes to be in power for another 10 years.
Hopefully it will for Brazil's sake. Hopefully it will for Brazil's sake. I mean, we could use a win in terms of the economy.
At some point,
in terms of the economy, yeah.
Edwin's pointing out the two are going to overlap, which is kind of unfortunate. Although there is also a tendency, I'd imagine it's if it's regression towards a mean that's rising, or even just regression towards a mean. The politics will represent the left when times are. That's when you get all your great society, blah blah. Past, right?
Yeah.
Oh, when you have 50%, I don't know what when you have that kind of GDP growth for a while, obviously.
As it peaks and tapers off, or what? I'm saying that would be when you get fashy stuff, right? It's the opposite of the
regular credit cycles, right? It's happened time and time again. I can show you why it happens. I'm not going to get into that, but my point is that at some point, the government is going to, at some point, Brazil's GDP is going to decrease in the rate of growth, and the government's currency is going to be devalued because of bad choices they made, because the incentives get all set up. You're going to get through that, but the economy is eventually going to do well again. So the question is, do you want it to do well? Do you want it to do well under the fascist, or do you want it to do well under the socialist?
All right. Well, let me pitch you why I don't think he's that bad.
This is like when Bill Maher was like, "I hope the economy collapses."
So you can, but instead of that, can you tell me why he's not that bad, and why you don't think the long-term ramifications from him are not going to be that bad?
They're basically the same, which is the mandate he's getting is not a far-right mandate.
Okay.
Right. of course, I mean, the main thing is a reaction to the Workers' Party, the corruption, the recession, and violence, which is not something I touched on. But of course, I mean, I'm sure you know how bad the violence in Brazil is, right? Like this is pretty much common knowledge. Rio is doing really, really shitty right now in terms of violence.
Actually, and well, not joke, but like it's a meme. The fact that parts of Brazil you just get stabbed. People get shot all the time.
No, yeah, it's a thing because Rio it's just like drug dealers hold a lot of territory in the city, in the slums, in the favelas, but they're like well established and take up a lot of the city.
What? America needs a lot of cocaine. All right.
Yeah. No, it's true. And
Wall Street,
these things are connected because corruption means you know the drug pipeline runs through Brazil.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's a bad, fucked up situation.
Yeah. And the left doesn't have this, doesn't have you know, their propositions for this for the next 4 years was more of the same, and nobody wants more of the same. What?
It's their you were looking for a word. I was just saying their approach. Is it the left's approach that's
yeah, because that's what they were trying to sell. They were trying to sell the narrative. Oh, Lula is persecuted. He's
been stabbed. No,
Bolsonaro's been stabbed.
I'm sorry.
Lula got thrown in prison.
Commie, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So the opposition candidate that Bolsonaro just beat, Lula was actually in his campaign materials.
Mussolini.
That's how much they were trying to bank on Lula's image, right? Because this guy, he was mayor of São Paulo. Nobody knew who he was. He was not a guy with national projection. They were banking on Lula's image, but it turns out people don't really like Lula anymore that much. Not enough to get someone elected, although it was enough to get over 40% of the vote. But basically, like Bolsonaro has all this this bullshit that he's said, and he's a really crude guy, and you know, defender of the dictatorship and everything. But I don't think that's how his government's going to go. That's not. And you know, I guess I'm here sort of making my prediction, and I might be wrong, and we'll see in the next few years. But
you're right.
But this is to the best of my understanding. He's going to make a center-right coalition. He's going to go for you know, moderate reforms. He's not going to do a lot of culture war. He scrubbed almost, and he scrubbed almost culture war thing
from what scrubbed.
Well, from his program, from his plan for the government.
Okay.
There's exactly one culture war thing, which is what they call the gay kit, which is sex ed in elementary school children.
Yeah, so he picked that as the token issue that he's going to take.
Yeah.
Yep, that's one that gets people pretty fucking riled up.
Yep. And you know, since you love to talk about pedophilia, there's a lot of
various cults running the world, each other up. You know, one of the primary blackmail.
I mean, and there's a lot of criticisms on those grounds, just like, you know, of sexualizing children. It's complicated. It's culture war bullshit, and I don't want to get into it. But he's not a culture war guy.
After Hillary Clinton's sex cult in Brazil.
I would not be surprised. He made it to Haiti. I figured.
I like him.
But he's not a culture war guy, or at least he stepped away from culture war very strongly.
Why?
Sorry, Edwin, I think I missed something.
Why?
Why did he step? What? Why did he step away from the culture war thing?
Yeah, that seems like
I think it's
ticket for politics.
because
Steve is part of the platform. I bet, right? It would be or not, maybe not platform, but like people are gonna just love not having to deal with all this shit, right?
I think it's not a winning issue. I think it's
just his,
you know.
Oh, the culture war isn't a winning issue. I got you. So okay,
Yeah,
so
it's not. Like, Brazilians don't. I mean, you have like the evangelical Christians. They care about gay people, but mostly people don't care about gay people.
The sex ed stuff, does that include gay sex ed?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah. You're gonna get all the.
Yeah, but mostly like we have gay marriage. I don't think anybody even noticed that we got gay marriage a few years ago.
I haven't noticed that we have gay marriage in America. A gay wedding.
Our gays have noticed that we.
Like, not even in politics, not even as a discussion, right? It happened. I think it was the Supreme Court, and people don't talk about it.
Yeah, nobody cares.
And it's not a winning issue, so I don't think he's going to be a culture war candidate. Well, president now, I guess. The big things that he's proposing is neoliberal economics, effective law enforcement, and
okay.
What?
You said effective. I said altruism.
Not quite.
I want to on that.
Although he does say he wants to work towards a UBI.
Is that when you don't you get a disease and a woman gets in the?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. And then after you're done, they give you free money.
Yep. Well, okay. So this, by the way, to give you guys an idea of what the Brazilian far right is. The Brazilian far right is a guy who wants to institute UBI, right?
I mean, there are people on the American far right who want UBI. UBI actually cuts across, like people on the further left end of the spectrum, further right end of the spectrum tend to be pro UBI.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
Yep. It is interesting how it works that way, but it's like they'll do it sometimes for opposing reasons. Like people on the right will get those bipartisan things often that seem, but people on the right will say, okay, let's do away with welfare and offer a UBI, because they're seeing that as, the welfare system. You'll have it's that tail risk unaccounted for. You'll have people who need millions of dollars over their life in care, and so if you it's a way of basically getting rid of the welfare state as it exists and Medicaid and stuff. It's the argument is kind of.
What's his name? Charles Murray's version. He proposed something where people would get, I think, it was like $1,500 a month or $1,800 a month, but $300. It was like $1,500 a month, but $300 of that went to healthcare.
An insurance plan that would be.
Yeah. So
then you're starting to work your way back into the. But I understand. He's just saying that healthcare would be an area that would have the most of those huge tail expenses.
I feel like you can't do a UBI without healthcare, because the healthcare isn't solved by UBI, which is like
yeah, that's true.
So I think I mean, in my ideal society, you have public education, public healthcare, a public and a private healthcare system, but a public one as well, and a UBI, and then like most of the military spending shit is cut, and a lot of the other really wasteful stuff is cut. Good luck, because if you try to cut military spending as a president, you'll probably get assassinated.
Of course.
In the U.S., I mean, think about how much money is at stake. I don't know if you would actually get assassinated, but if there's anything that would make you come close to get assassinated in the U.S., it would probably be standing up to the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, I believe it.
It might be that the complex currently prevents people from rising to the sufficient level of power to even threaten it.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But unless they got the most serious imaginable nowadays on that guy, then that politician is suddenly very useful.
Obama
actually how those game dynamics work.
Obama actually tried, though. There's a while where he was just like, okay, because we can't get Congress to decide to make specific cuts when it comes to the military because they're all bought off, we're just going to say, okay, we can't increase any military spending from here on out. We're just going to freeze it across all different budgets. And then obviously that was super inefficient because people in the military are just like, okay, but then there are a lot of things that like
they're fluctuating costs. You can't
you do that. And like there are a lot of things we should cut, but there are a lot of things that we need now that are underfunded because of the
That's a conservative tactic, starving the beast, right? It's not a efficient.
But obviously
not modularized like that.
Increased the spending significantly. But Obama was conservative. Like if you think about Obamacare, right?
Okay.
It was just like if we get enough people on healthcare, it'll take a couple of decades, but eventually they'll make it work because you're not going to take it away from them. So,
you mean politically it would be feasible? Is that what you? So they'll want to vote it in?
Republicans want to repeal Obamacare.
It's like the gay marriage thing. Once it's there, they're like, you guys do one.
Depend on having government health care now. You can't just take it away from them. So eventually,
without killing a bunch of people or without causing a bunch of stuff that would make it look really bad for you politically.
I mean, you could do it, but then everybody would lose all.
Yeah, you would look really bad, and that in political space, that's kind of the determining factor in a lot of.
And then it'll be really easy for Bernie Sanders to get.
If a tape of you on, say, some island in the Virgin Islands, if that were ever leaked, that would be the sort of thing, especially if it involved the, committing a serious crime, that sort of thing. That would be the sort of thing.
How much easier it'll be for Bernie Sanders to get voters if Trump got rid of Obamacare and didn't replace it with anything.
Yeah.
That'd
be ballsy.
That'd be pretty dumb.
That would be easy. Which, by the way, is why
there's a ring to it. You can come up, send you $50 in the mail, cash. I don't know why I did that accent for Trump.
Wait, you sent Trump $50 in the mail?
No, never mind. A Trump Care. I said Trump Care has a nice ring to it.
Oh. No, I don't. No, I don't want to have to remember him after he's gone.
Same.
So annoying. Like he's funny, but he's still like a massive asshole who's like a horrible human being.
Terrible person.
Like the phenomenon is funny, but I mean, like maybe.
But he only went to Epstein Island like a few times, and Clinton went all those 20-something times, right? So it's a 4chan stat of how much of a pedophile monster.
Trump is probably in the top 1% of horrible human beings.
People can be pretty bad.
Yeah, but like how many people, you meet 100 people, like what are the odds that one of them is like
worse than Trump out of 100 random people? Like worse. I mean, I guess in the net damage, just because he's a bajillionaire and like
the consequential
people. You mean like as a person? I mean,
don't take the consequentialist view. Just think like
rape each other and stuff. I mean, people are really. I mean, I guess he's probably.
My point is like, don't take the consequentialist view because you can't assume that.
Right. I was wondering if you were asking me, because then it'd be obvious. Okay, sure, he's like he's like in the top. Because there's only how many billionaires are there?
Well, I'm just okay.
And he's a shitty one. Yeah. Okay.
All I'm saying is this, right?
But like John Wayne Gacy, bad. There's bad, and then there's
He's
like
the most narcissistic person ever.
digging up just the bodies of boys that you raped and killed, and it takes weeks for them to, and they like the coroner.
What's that like? One in
like on that day of boys. This was his phase where he was into like Mexican children. That was his, that's I'm just saying that's Trump. I don't think Trump is that.
Let's play it this way. There's 700 billion people, 7.5 billion people on Earth.
7.5, sure.
Right. So do you think that there's 70 million people on Earth that are worse than Trump? Worse human beings. Trump is like easily the most narcissistic person I've ever like seen.
70 million people that are worse. I guess. I mean, but what like narcissism? That's like you can have a narcissistic asshole racist grandpa who has never raped anyone. I mean, not that Trump has never. Trump's probably. Why are we talking about?
If someone says that person is the most narcissistic person I've ever seen in my life, that the person who is the most narcissistic person that you've ever seen in your life is likely in the top 1% of awful people that exist on Earth.
Oh, did we lose him? No, he's there. All right. I think he's just not at his chair.
Yeah. Do you know what? But you know what I mean, though.
I mean, yeah, but you want to. I mean, people like General Butt Naked versus Trump. I know Butt Naked is a very special Butt Naked. You were telling me like that was weird for Liberia, weird for everywhere. The naked man chopping out hearts and eating.
Going from warlord to religious entrepreneur. What a career track.
If I visit, we should go. I want to just get a selfie at his.
Yeah, I mean,
Edwin is, or we're discussing not Captain Butt Naked, General Butt Naked.
Oh, General Butt Naked, right?
Yes, the cannibal warlord.
Heard about him for the first time tonight.
Yes.
It's nice we don't have.
But you know what's great about General Butt Naked? He's now a pastor.
Yeah. Yep, it's a congregation.
Following. And Paul wants to go see him.
I was joking about possibly getting a selfie with him. I mean, how many times do you see someone who's eaten human heart, a bunch of human heart?
How many times do you see a pastor who's eaten?
A man of the cloth. Used to murder children and eat them, and now he is a pastor. And a selfie, apparently, warranted. Oh boy. So that was my point, though. There's some really bad. Trump just seems like a complete asshole.
Really bad, dude. I said 1%. I said
Zoe Quinn. Zoe Quinn is worse than Trump.
I said 1%. You see 100 people, just 100 individuals.
Narcissists. I mean, we kind of isolate we don't, because if you know someone like that, you can usually, especially if you're financially, if you're able to be a little mobile, you can avoid those people. You just not work at that place. Oh my God. So I think we tend to, it's like academia and people, not realizing there's lots of people who aren't as well educated or smart.
I just think he's an awful human being. We're not going to agree on this, but I think he's literally just.
I think he's an awful. Yeah. All right. I mean, would you have preferred Hillary Clinton, knowing what we know?
I obviously would not be happy about Hillary Clinton, but I would also prefer that we don't have Brett Kavanaugh. Like, that's going to shape our laws for decades to come.
The man
on that pill.
Got boofing, so we know he'll be an honest Supreme Court justice.
Like, I would rather have Hillary.
Nobody knows what boofing is.
I would rather have Hillary Clinton because there's a legit chance. First of all, affirmative action is just gone. I mean, it's just gone. Say whatever.
The lawsuit by a bunch of Chinese students might be setting the precedent for that. Do you mean the lawsuit meeting the court? Yeah. Okay.
Just strike it down.
Well, but
I mean, okay, whatever.
Lawsuit would have gone through under a
affirmative action. I'm not going to get into that. My point is, from my perspective,
they
like
took the railroads here, man. They just.
I would like to have him do it financially and not by race, because I think it doesn't make sense to do it by race. But whatever.
Economically underprivileged, they would, because they currently, I mean, most of the Ivies, if you are, certainly Columbia with their endowment, and they're like a poor Ivy, I think. If you're poor enough, you don't pay anything.
If you go to Stanford and your parents make under 100K, you pretty much don't pay anything.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, not just in terms of paying for it, in terms of like accounting for that in the administrative process, that could be pretty useful. Because I mean, obviously, like if you have parents who can support you, your chances of making better grades are just like not like just parents who can support you, but parents who are educated. Because you can have parents who are like, you know, cop or whatever, who have made good money, but they don't have like an active intellectual life, so they weren't able to get you on a certain path from a young age.
Yeah, so that you would be presentable to that admissions system.
Yeah.
Yeah,
or just like be interested in the things that would optimize your chances of getting in that kind of admission system. It's obvious, you know, it is what it is. But
it change. I mean, it's just the current way just seems to be building up certain resentments. And they aren't even white people, or it's Asians. I find that amusing. Like, you know, you think like that,
all of a sudden things like abortion are on the table. Like, we're gonna continue to think that a corporation has the same rights as people do when it comes to political speech.
That's insane. I agree. Yeah,
all that
for people, but fetuses are also people. They're just really into peopling. That's the people defining things as people.
Like, we could think more. You know, I'm not talking about abortion. Like, I'm just saying that.
Except for the black slaves they imported into, right? We were talking about. Was that on the podcast, or when we were talking about of Brazil? That was before.
Well, we were talking about the good old days.
Because the natives, good old days. The natives in Brazil were declared by the Catholics to have souls, and therefore, if they wanted slaves, they got to import from Africa.
That's right.
Yeah, that's good.
Got no souls, man.
Catholic Church making the right calls.
I'm surprised they didn't have it like the natives. The natives have like 77/10 soul.
Yeah, soul, man. That's sufficient soul to vote, but it doesn't count as much.
Grief is compromised.
You know, there was a thing about the Catholic Church, like proselytizing and like. So they didn't want them to be slaves because they wanted them to be the flocks. You know, there was a bit about that. There's also another bit about how the Catholic Church made capybaras into fish.
Yeah.
So that you could eat them on Friday.
Yeah. They decreed that taxonomy is invalid.
On a completely related note, the Catholic Church just released an AR app that's similar to Pokemon Go.
Yes. Was that on the list of things I wanted to, or is this under, because I saw that.
Something else.
Oh, okay. And it has all the saints. So it's Pokemon Go, but for the saints, and it actually has the Vatican's approval.
Giggity.
Speaking of the Vatican, I know we mentioned South Park and how this season's been amazing. I thought that the episode with Comboni, that was probably one of the best ones this season, and that's saying something because the season's been amazing. Last season, we talked about this, I think, on an earlier podcast like many months ago, but last season there was the episode with the witches. It was Jack and Crack weekend where they go and they dress up as witches. It was a Halloween episode. It was right around this time, but it was last season. Do you remember this Brazilian guy?
I actually missed what you're talking about because my internet kind of sucks. What are you talking about?
South Park, the last season of South Park.
No, I haven't watched South Park in years, to be honest.
All right. how did it come up? Maybe I was
I
Edwin.
was talking about South Park and how awesome it was.
Oh, okay.
When he stepped up, yeah.
Oh, when he stepped, that's why. Okay. All right. Well, I'm tired. What is it?
Yeah, we should probably end the podcast.
We can wrap it up. I just wanted to say the Jack and Crack Weekend episode. There was an episode last season that had the plot line was just that all the men in the village, right? They would go and LARP as witches out in the woods and get drunk and do drugs. And oh man, look, Jack, Bob's reading from a holy book. Oh, some demonic book. Oh boy. And then one of them fucking turns into a witch, gets on a broomstick, flies off, starts kidnapping kids and putting them in a big stack. Like that was actually a thing. Shooting he's destroying the town. So then they have to enlist the guy who is playing Trump that season. The who's their teacher? Not the one who the trans teacher. What's his name?
Sure.
Yeah, that guy is Trump for the whole 2 seasons. He was that guy's, and I think he's still like that's because they didn't want to have Trump in. They didn't want to honor him by putting him in South Park. So they made one of the main characters. That's their reason anyway. And that guy used to be a witch, and now he's being because he knows about the witches' coven or whatever. He's being used to disrupt the witches. Yeah, and then eventually they shoot the witches with a laser beam because he's like, my magic gets stronger because it's And then in the very end, they did that. They always gotta twist it a little bit and point out weird dark ambiguities about moral narratives, where they had all the people coming out of the bag at the end, all the kids getting rescued, and then one kid was like, 1 second, I'll be on in a second. And it was a reference. They made it ambiguous, but it was a reference to just the fact that Cartman's girlfriend always took a while to get ready. Oh, I'll be ready in a second. But it's South Park. It's like with a NAMBLA episode they did where they had like, I'm so mature. It was just like, if you're giving advice to a parent about how to protect your kid, that sort of behavior is the sort of thing you want to notice and stop if you can, or explain away, or figure out. You don't want to write. And you have to be able to present that narrative without blaming. Obviously, definitely in this case, blaming a victim. And so you end up with, if you want to broadcast that message, you have to be deep, like South Park. You have to be deep and crude and crazy and very pleasing aesthetically in its own weird way, without any big, deeper narrative necessarily being portrayed. And so then they have that excuse of everything is comedic and funny, and so they can just whatever story they're telling. It's like a Coen's. Yeah, but anyway, okay. So I just want, since you were like pedophilia is the subject, I just wanted to bring up just to clarify why that would be a thing that comes up a lot.
I understand. I get it. But I should watch South Park again.
It's fantastic, and it's just been getting better. It's not like The Simpsons for what I mean. It's because it's the same people, I guess.
Yeah, there is that.
And they're
mature.
I think when you become a parent, it seems to be this like second wind that like by CK, I think kind of right as he was getting divorced and his kids were growing up, and then he was trying to become a good dad. Like that was kind of when his comedy career really blossomed. In a weird, he had all his dad problems, and that was a thing I think a lot of people resonated with him. But and that was actually right as at least the tail, 2012, 2013 was when I was living with my brother in New York City, and they had their first Catholic baby, and now they've had 2 more since then. But they're just, gonna be a big family on that side anyway. So then I don't have to start because there's, already the genes are spreading, so I can wait.
Takes the heat off you, yeah.
But anyway, all right. So South Park is good. We were talking about Brazil. I think we got all the Brazil stuff out, right?
Yeah, I just want to, I guess, finish on this point, right? That I think there's a lot of hysteria going on about what this election means and what will happen. So just urge you guys not to take it with a grain of salt. right? There's this narrative that the left is being persecuted because of the corruption, the focus on culture.
Wait, you're cutting out
The
at least.
reason he got elected, and probably not going to be his focus.
Just in case that it might have just been me, and I might just be making you repeat it for no reason, but it cut out for a bit in the middle. Edwin, did it cut out for you too?
Doesn't matter. Just repeat yourself.
Yeah, just go ahead. Sorry.
Sure. Okay. So what I was saying is there's a lot of hysteria going on about this election. It's not as bad as it's being made out to be. It might actually be a good thing in the long run. This narrative of persecution of the left is in large part a smokescreen for the fact that this big center left party was really corrupt, and they're being taken down by this. This election was a reaction mainly to that and to the poor conditions of the country. Bolsonaro's, at least what he's been signaling, that this is not going to be a culture war government. This is going to be law and order, anti-corruption, and economy-focused government. I don't think he's going to expend a lot of political capital on culture war bullshit. I think
when you say culture war bullshit, would that also be like social? When people say I'm a social liberal but a fiscal conservative, so he would have more socially liberal besides the sex ed thing that he's picking up.
Yeah,
it would be at least not fuck with the existing social liberalism.
Mostly no, with two exceptions since we're on the subject. The sex ed thing and education. There's sort of a movement ideology in education, which is having like the Brazilian education system now and then is an actual problem. Just every single teacher.
Every single teacher. What was that last part?
Every single teacher that you encounter in the system is a commie.
Oh, that sounds like college in America. That's unless it's the economics department.
You have no idea how much worse it is. Okay. Let me just say this, for instance. Just in the past 2 days, I heard, like, not looking for it, just spontaneously, that 3 different children had teachers like telling them how awful Bolsonaro was, like that he's a bad man, he's going to do awful things. One of them actually told the kids, this is, I think, an 11 or 12-year-old girl who is black, by the way. The teacher said that Bolsonaro is going to kill all the black people.
That's pretty.
Whoa.
Maybe he should not try to kill all the black people.
Yeah, man. Does he ever signal anything like that? Is it, or is it like Trump when they say he's gonna kill all the black? They don't.
Yeah, it's probably like.
I love the blacks.
That's what leftists do. They just like try to get poor black people to vote for them by calling people on the right racist. Which they are.
No comment.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, Bolsonaro's. I mean, he's got the standard like libertarianish thing on. That's his
responsibility.
Yeah, but also like let's look at individuals, not groups.
He actually says that.
Clean up your room. Wash your penis.
That'd be nice if Democrats started like
washing their penises.
Individualist values.
Oh, okay. That was again. That was a. I mean, okay, wait, not Democrat. I guess Demos Kratia. That would always be the more or Demos anyway would be the more populist side, right? And then the Republic would be the structure of the. Yeah, I don't know, but maybe the words don't mean a lot anymore. But like you're saying, the Individualist Party. Well, the Individualist Party would tend to be the one that's more like, I guess. Well, yeah, elite. Yeah, it depends.
Like, obviously, if you like, so the mindset of a libertarians is actually awesome for individuals. Like, if you saw the world as a libertarian on a day-to-day perspective, you're actually better off.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
But then for society, it's awful.
Or it can be, yeah, it can be hard to sustain a bunch of, it's like herding cats. You can't.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. So the trick is like having a party that recognizes that and acknowledges that while also like providing the services that are necessary. The Republicans, they just like take that ethos all the way to a place that's not necessary, and they're hypocritical about it if you look at how they set their budgets and everything. But in the Democrats,
I get it.
Also, they just like they don't focus on like why personal responsibility matters, even though like we probably should have healthcare, even if you know it's like I don't know. Then,
I agree.
Now, that freaks out like low income white voters, like people who are looking to climb the economic ladder and are around a lot of people who do have a victim mindset and they don't want they just don't want that.
They see that every day, and then they
people who are just like, I'm on welfare, like that's what I do, and they don't want.
That's the thing.
Yeah, they don't want that.
Yeah,
it's like a weird dynamic.
Yeah,
it's like on a thermodynamic level, it's a very everything is. But I mean, it's not a big machine in that sense. I shouldn't, moral judgments are not based on. We'll go to great lengths to save Cancer Boy who has cancer. With radiation and millions of dollars of all sorts. So it's not a thermodynamic moral system, but it's still weird when you take like biomass that you really care about and then you stick it somewhere and just watch it just get like it doesn't do. There's no flourishing of any kind, like any human. Like it's kind of a. It's not a fate worse than death, because death is the thing you're trying to avoid. Having, a lot throughout all of history, poor people have just died in droves constantly. Just nobody cares. That's always been the case. It is still the case largely, yeah. But then there's certain places where like it's like instead of killing them, we like poison them with all this food, and like they can't move, and there's just like literally can't move, but then also can't move away from their circumstance, like food deserts. That like. There's just all this weird, like ways we try. It's the morbidity versus mortality trade-off, and we try to morally or ethically like industrialize that, and it just gets really horrifying. But I mean, also a bunch of peasants dying in the street is horrifying. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not making a moral judgment here, really, but
it's it's a hard circle to square. It's it's one of the big questions.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, guys, I have another question.
Oh boy.
This is unrelated, but
all right, let's go.
What do you think of the tagline for Google? I want that future.
It has like a consumerist thing to it, like and like a millennial like click. What's the term? Slacktivism, and like I want that. That's the one.
I want that future.
That's gonna be that one.
There's a Karl Rove element to that, like all
right,
hit them where they're strongest, right? Don't just or like just pretend that your greatest weakness is your greatest strength. Right? So it's like. Everyone's like, oh, Google's pushing us into this nightmare future. No, I want that future.
Oh my God. That's some Orwellian, like.
Everybody doesn't think that. Only like internet.
No, isn't that the narrative? At least they think Facebook is doing this largely, but right,
Yeah.
a lot of normies right now think.
Normies have that narrative about Facebook because it's true. But with Google, I don't think normies have that narrative. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. But so anyway, you said I want that future. So you're saying that probably works for the normies, and it's probably horrifying to a certain subset of internet, like Redditors.
Absolutely.
Redditors are probably pretty disturbed by that, maybe.
Yeah.
Anybody who thinks about the arc of technology is probably horrified by that. But
yeah, things are kind of scary.
they're always scary.
Yeah.
Right, but the existential scary, like the Ice Nine devouring the planet type of, like or some are nanobots or whatever bullshit. Or like I think about how reliant we are on like microcircuits and little photolithograph, tiny things, little pieces of metal that are long and that would burn up if there was
we're gonna die. It's okay.
What?
We're all gonna die.
Right, but coronal mass ejection stuff. That's the thing I'm because I understand I'm going to die. But in terms of the species, that level of event could be so readily
overrated. Trust me.
Right. Humans would probably make it, but I mean, we would go back to Middle Ages level quick. It's I mean, okay, I know we'd have records, we'd have people. It depends on how many people died as a result. So I shouldn't say.
Faster.
We would much quicker because we'd still have records of things. That's true. But like, I mean, there's so much you could be doing though in like the Foundation, Isaac Asimov's, well, it's trilogy, but the Foundation universe that, but the idea that, okay, you see at least the possibility of collapse coming and just little pockets of like, you could store, most of the knowledge of humanity in like a quartz crystal, a big one. You could store it with little laser, etching 3D stuff, or you could do holographic storage or something like that. And you could set it up in a way that actually would last a really long time. And then you just leave it with the apparatus, or multiple copies of some apparatus or instructions on how to build an apparatus for reading that. And like, you just see that in 20 spots, I mean, that's the sort of thing where, because a CME event would I mean, essentially all of our electronics, except for things, maybe a handful of things that were built to withstand nukes, because it's basically a global EMP. What?
I think we should blockchain it.
How? You'd store all that would be stored on
blockchain, dude. Fixes everything.
Yeah, Oh, okay, you're fucking with me. Yeah, you could. Yeah, blockchain ayahuasca. All right. So this is a good podcast. All right, we want to end it.
It's actually a pretty good one. I like it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Edwin,
No
it's great to meet you. Paul, finally talking face to face.
Yeah. All right.
Well, Paul, just take us off live, and then we'll
yeah.
We'll make.